What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 3 tips to run a better comeback route. So we're going to be talking about how you guys can get that DB to flip his hips, how you guys can eliminate time at the top of the break, and how you guys can ultimately attack a DB's leverage when he's in zone coverage, okay? So I hope this video helps you guys out. Let's get started with this thing. So this first route is from Richie James. We're going to be talking about how you guys want to let your hips be the thing that slows you down when you're running this comeback route, okay? So now what so many wide receivers will do is when you get to a higher level, there's so many talented DBs, right? DBs are taught, they're reading that body language, they're watching your hips, they're watching your torso. They're not going to be able to get separation with as easy as when you're playing maybe at the high school or the youth level, right? So when you get up to that next level, the DBs are more disciplined, so we have to be more disciplined in my route running. So many wide receivers, when they get up to this point on a comeback, they're so concerned with eliminating steps, trying to get out of this thing as fast as possible, get down that 45, maybe because they're expecting the quarterback to throw this thing too early, whatever it is. So what they start to do is they start to turn their shoulder and they start to turn their hip before they actually snap down. But the thing that you have to be able to do to create energy at the top of the break and to have that sudden break, because everybody loves to talk about this like explosive trigger step right here, is you cannot start to round the break too early. You can't give that indicator with your hips and with your shoulders, because that'll take away explosion from the cut and that'll let the DB know exactly where I'm going. So we have to make sure that till the last possible second, you are committed to this fade. Your hips and your shoulders, everything is saying vertical, so we can get that DB to bail out of there. And we're going to talk about that here in a second as well. But when we drop, that's what changes direction for me. So many wide receivers don't trust their hips. They don't actually trust that drop of their butt. They're not trying to bring their chin to their knee. They're just trying to round this thing, get out in the least amount of steps possible, and they lose that explosion. And here's the news, fellas. That explosive break right there, that snap down is what will shoot you out of the break. If you don't have that explosive drop with your hips, you're going to be slow out of the break, and you're going to give this DB 10 times more of amount of time to react to this ball. So we have to make sure, fellas, first tip to running a better comeback route is you have to commit to the break, you have to be violent with your hips, and you have to be able to use that violent hip drop to take you out of the break. Do not turn the shoulders, do not turn the hips to get out of the break too early. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Before we get into that second tip, I want to add that there's a lot of different variations of how you can run this comeback route and how you can do it, especially against man coverage, and that's the next tip that we are going to be talking about. Let's watch the thing again, full speed. Great job by James selling vertical and using the hip drop to be the thing that shoots him out. Before we get into this next tip though, fellas, I want to talk to you about something we are offering on our website currently right now is our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. So what it is, there's over 500 wide receiver drills and gym exercises contained in this 8-week, 2-month-long daily training schedule for wide receivers this offseason. We break down every single on-field drill that wide receivers need to do, and then we break down every single gym exercise that wide receivers need to do on a daily basis. We include sets and repetitions, we include rest periods, we have conditioning days, we have off days, we have solely route running days, and I have a 2-hour video included in this where I break down every single drill. We talk about the importance of the drill, and we show you a full speed example. So you guys want a complete off-season training package for wide receivers, check out that very first link in that description below. Let's get back to this video. So second tip to improve your comeback route is we have to make it look like a fade. And how do I actually do that to get this DB to open up his hips? So here's a different variation of how to run this thing. We call this a stutter comeback, right? And that stutter is just another way to get that DB to commit to the fade, right? So there's a lot, it builds off a stutter go. There's a million different ways to run a comeback route, right? You can run it off a vertical set. You could give him a little rocker step. You give him a little stutter like so. You give a peek back at the top of the break. There's a million different moves that you can use, but how do I know when to use each one? And again, this stutter comeback builds off of a stutter go. So if you guys are maybe a stutter go heavy offense, maybe you guys like to run a lot of hitches, then you like to hit them with the stutter go, maybe we could work a stutter comeback. And you see a team like the Vikings are another team that like to run this a lot. They run that stutter comeback with Thielen, they'll run it with Jefferson. But again, this stutter comeback is a great way to just get that DB to commit to the fade. But the mindset that we need to have is that everybody loves to say like, oh, and again, a DB's taught to stay patient. A DB's taught to sit on this type of route, not open up the gate too quick. My mindset needs, I'm going to force him to open up the gate. And there are 3 specific things that I have to do that. One of them we already covered. You obviously got to have your body language committed to the fade, right? We talked about in the very first tip. But the second thing that you have to be able to do is stay in stride on the break and have your eyes going straight forward, or you could throw a peek back technique, okay? So that's the second tip to improving your comeback is you have to stay in stride and you have to have your eyes forward, okay? So many guys, what they'll do is right before they get up to a break, they start to shorten their stride. They start to chop their steps because they're preparing for it. They're thinking, okay, I'm about to get ready to make a break. So they start to slow down. They start to chop their steps because they're getting ready to snap at a specific depth. Maybe their eyes drop. All that does is just give this DB an indicator of when I'm making this break. We have to make sure that I stay in stride. I stay straight forward. And now you see this receiver, he decides to throw this little peek back move right here. That's another great way. That's kind of a more advanced thing. I would say try to get down the concept of selling vertical and having an explosive drop before you think about peeking back with your eyes. But again, Great thing to get that DB to commit. Great thing to get this DB to bite on the fade, especially if his eyes are high and his eyes are undisciplined. So that's a great job there. So second tip to make sure that we run a better comeback is stay in stride and make sure we have those eyes straight forward or peeking back at that quarterback to get that DB to overcommit, get him to commit to the fade with his hips, with his speed. So when I get out of the break, he's already a step behind. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job hitting him with this stutter to make sure that he explodes back up vertical. Great job selling with those eyes and then being violent with those hips to shoot back to the ball. Okay, so now, second tip I want to talk about here on running a comeback route is being able to eliminate those wasted steps by getting your hips turned at the top of the break. Okay, so we're looking at this route from Justin Jefferson. This is another thing that I was talking about earlier, right? He hits him with that kind of rocker step, gets the DB's hips to turn in that zone coverage, and he's able to accelerate back to the ball, right? So this rocker step, again, another way to do the comeback route, another way to close the distance, hits him with the rocker. Now we're bursting up to the blind spot and getting to the break. Now, so many guys get caught up with, like in the very first tip that I talked about, they don't actually drop their hips. They don't actually snap down because they're rounding the shoulders, rounding the hips because they're so concerned to get out of this break. Your upper body is not what gets you out of the break. The second step of a comeback is what will get you out of the break. So what do I mean by second step? Obviously, you snapping. I teach, and I know a lot of people teach snapping with the inside foot on a comeback. So when he snaps down with the inside foot, the step that's going to get your hips turned is this second step that gets in the grass. Because you see how Jefferson, what does he do with that step? He pivots it, right? So many receivers will snap down and then that toe, their toes are pointed forward of the second step. They'll snap and it'll be a great snap, but then their toes are pointed forward. So then their hips and shoulders stay pointed forward. And then they have to take these extra 2, 3, 4 steps just to be able to get back downhill and get out of this break, which, as you know, gives this DB time to react. So that second step of the comeback is what gets your hips turned. So we have to snap, pivot. And then if you take a couple extra steps after that, if you take 3, 4 steps, that's totally fine. But at least your hips are turned, and at least you're in a position to drive back to the ball. So make sure, fellas, third tip to improving your comeback route is after you snap down, make sure that your second step pivots to get your hips turned so you could get back to that ball. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Jefferson closing space. Great job hitting him with that rocker step to get that DB to sit, open up those hips, and pivoting that second step to get out of this route. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We'll get back to you as soon as I can. I always appreciate the feedback, and it's obviously always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan, all the things wide receivers need to do on the field and in the gym, over 500 wide receiver drills and gym workouts to improve your skills. Check out that very first link in the description below if you guys want a complete off-season guide. I'll see you guys next time.